My dear students, today we will study about evolution and we will see how natural selection and genetic drift participate in evolution. First, we should know what is evolution. Let us see what's evolution. What's evolution? During sexual reproduction, when organisms reproduce by sexual method, no two organisms are alike. There is difference in offsprings. Even brothers and sisters, they are not alike. Thus, there is variation, and these variations over course of time it leads to evolution. And when we will talk about asexual reproduction, when organisms reproduce sexually, organisms' offsprings are alike. They are exact copies of each other, but still there is variation. And this variation is due to errors in DNA copying. And these variations over due course of time they led to evolution. Thus, evolution thus we can say evolution it is variation during reproduction. Reproduction that's inbuilt tendency of every organism, and thus we can say evolution is due to an inbuilt tendency to variation during reproduction because of errors in DNA copying and as a result of sexual reproduction. Thus, we can say evolution it is due to variation during reproduction due to DNA errors in DNA copying and as a result of sexual reproduction. Now, let me give you an example to make you understand what is natural selection and genetic drift. For example, let us consider a group of 12 beetles. Beetles are insects and which are living in green bushes. These beetles, they reproduce by sexual reproduction. And let us imagine that crow eat all these beetles. The more beetles the crow eat, the fewer beetles are available to reproduce. Now, let us consider first situation. In first situation, a color variation arises during reproduction. Suppose there is one beetle. We consider 12 red beetles and there is one beetle green in color instead of red. This beetle moreover can pass its color to next progeny so that its progeny beetles are green. Crows cannot see colored green beetles on the green leaves of the bushes, and therefore they cannot eat them. The progeny of green beetles is not eaten while the progeny of red beetles is eaten. As a result, there are more green beetles than red ones in the beetle population. In the second situation, this means population of green beetles that increase. This means it is natural selection. This means these green beetles, what does evolution of green beetles lead to? It is natural selection. Natural selection, this means green beetles they have survival advantage over red beetles. They have better adaptation to the environment. That is what is known as natural selection. In second situation, a color variation again arises during reproduction, but now it results in a beetle that is blue in color. This beetle also passes the color to its progeny so that its progeny beetles are blue. Crow can see colored beetles in the blue colored beetles in the green leaves of the bush as well as red beetles. This means crow can eat both red beetles and blue color beetles and therefore can eat them. what happens in the population as it expands? There are few blue beetles, but most are red. But at this point, an elephant comes by and stamps on the bush where the beetles live. Crow can eat both red and blue beetles, but here what happens? An elephant comes by and stamps on the bush where the beetles live. This kills most of the red beetles. By chance, the few beetles that have survived that are mostly blue, and the beetle population slowly expands again, but now the beetles in the population are mostly blue. This is what is known as genetic drift. This means here genetic drift blue beetles also have no survival advantage, but they survive because due to elephant that kills our red beetles and blue beetles survive. This is known as genetic drift. This means genetic drift, you can say it is variation in the relative frequency of different genotypes in small population owing to chance of disappearance of particular genes as individuals die or do not reproduce. This is what is genetic drift and natural selection. Natural selection में आपने देखा कि green beetles they adapt to natural environment instead of red beetles, but in case of genetic drift, by chance, by accident, red beetles die due to elephant foot and blue beetles survive. They survive. That's why population of blue beetles increase. It is thus always in both situations we start a rare variation come to a common characteristic in a population. In other words, we can say frequency of an inherited trait changed over generations. This means this is what we can say what is evolution. Thus, evolution you can say it is due to variation, or we can say it is due to an inbuilt tendency due to variation during reproduction, due to errors in DNA copying, and during sexual reproduction. That was all about evolution. Thank you.